Now, opponents of the Indigenous voice are expecting the Yes campaign to raise 3 times the amount they can through a flood of corporate donations, big philanthropic donations. James, we already have seen the massive war chest of the Yes campaign, rumoured to be upwards of 100 million. We've never seen anything like this, that amount being spent in a short period of time for political messaging.
Well, and you know, we knew that this was coming right from the beginning because, remember, the very first thing that Anthony Albanese did when he became Prime Minister, when he won that night last year, was he stood up before the local Leagues Club and said, I'm going to introduce the Uluru Statement to the heart, or from the heart, and that's going to be the voice, the treaty, and the truth. Now it's just the voice, but what was the first thing that happened right after that? Every corporate in town that had to, you know, get its regulations through the new government said, oh, yep, sign us up for $1 million or $2 million there so we can, you know, keep talking to you guys and keep talking to cabinet ministers and all of that. So there's a huge pile of money there. The question is, though, guys, whether this money is going to be effectively deployed. And I frankly have a fair suspicion that an awful lot of this is going to be spent, you know, converting people who are already converted, right, you know, yes voters. One thing I do think that is very interesting, I'll note that in some of the areas where you would expect there to be an awful lot of yes support, I was at the Business Council of Australia dinner a week or so ago. They talked about the voice and there was very tepid applause in the room. People in that room cared much more about the IR reforms that were being inflicted on business. And I'll also tell you that some mates of mine told me that they were up in Mossman yesterday, and they were at the No campaign booth, and they said that they saw an awful lot of people very enthusiastically taking No material. And this is in, you know, the heart of Warringah, Zali country, and that there's an awful lot of people who were very enthusiastic about it in almost sort of like, this is our naughty little secret sort of way. So I think there's a big shy Trump, shy no vote out there on this, Rita.
Oh, look, I've long said that a big part of the undecideds are a shy no. People who have made up their mind, but they don't want to tell a pollster no because of the way the no vote has been characterised. But I think it's really important that the no's don't become complacent. We've got a massive war chest being spent here. Companies like BHP, Rio Tinto, is at $2 million each they've donated. These are just sums that we haven't seen in an Australian electoral cycle being spent. It has to have an impact. They're going around door knocking people.
The impact I'm interested in is if the no vote gets up, how do BHP and other mining giants explain to their shareholders millions of dollars spent on a campaign where they themselves were vilified? Remember the Yes campaign recently suggested to their supporters, we need to demonise somebody, we need an enemy, so make the mining giants an enemy. These mining giants have stumped up shareholder money in support of the Yes campaign. The other thing that's interesting is the No campaign have had a couple of donors of over $1 million, but we don't know who those donors are because they want to remain anonymous, which goes to your comment, James, that there's this silent no vote of people who feel very strongly no, but don't want to be identified, including, it seems, some major corporations.
Well, so the thing is here, the key thing, though, I think that point about complacency is absolutely right. If I was running the No campaign right now, I would be trying to be much more visible, I think, in places like New South Wales and Victoria. New South Wales is on a knife edge on this one. New South Wales could also tip. I know that they want to focus a lot on South Australia, Tasmania. They figure Queensland, WA are written off. Just need to pick up one of those and the whole thing is done. I think that's a risky strategy. And I think the other point, too, is that over the next 6 weeks, you know, people who are no voters are going to be bombarded with this tidal wave of yes messaging, and you don't want them to get dispirited or disillusioned or think that their side is going to lose or not turn out or, you know, decide to waver because, oh, well, fine, I'll just be nice and tick the yes box. I think that that's all a bit, you know, bit of a concern. And I think that despite the real success they've had with a very good online strategy, they, you know, you walk around, you see yes posters, you see the stuff all flooding social media. They do need to, I think, be more public and give no people a sense that they're not alone.
I finally saw a no bumper sticker yesterday, and it was the first one I've seen, even though the polls, and we've had 4 major polls in the last month showing us that the no camp's winning, you don't see that in people's homes. You can see the yes posters prominently. You don't see anybody putting a no poster, possibly because they fear that someone's going to smash their window.
Absolutely.
There is a bit of that happening
Look,
as well.
would anybody watching this show put a no sticker on their car and park it on the street? Absolutely not. Would you put a no sticker on your house?
What does that say about yes voters, though? Because
it says that they're the tolerant left, Rita, and they're going to love your car with key scratches to make sure that you feel the love when you put in the insurance claim.
But the reverse isn't true, because the yes voters have no qualms about putting yes posters on their houses or bumper stickers on their car, because, well, I guess the no voters are a little bit better behaved on average.
Well, it's the way that the debate has been framed. If you're a yes voter, then you're for a fair go. You're for Indigenous people. If you're a no voter, you may not be a racist, but you probably are. So you'd be afraid to advertise your intent to vote no.
I don't think it's that at all. I don't think it's that at all. Yes, there's been a bit of that, but I think we've had this in consecutive elections. We saw it in America, where even if you were in the most conservative part of America, where it was 90% Republican, people were comfortable putting Biden posters up because the Republicans weren't going to smash their windows. But if you're in New York City, you wouldn't put a Trump sticker up because you would get absolutely. It's just this.
Rita, you were with me in 2020 when we were in New York City for that presidential election, and I remember being in one of the sort of fancy shopping areas downtown in Manhattan, and I was in one of the stores, and all of the stores had plywood over the windows, and it was a few days before the election day, and I said to one of the shopkeepers, I said, "What's the deal with the boarded up windows?" And they said, "It's in case the wrong guy wins." And this was in the heart of Democrat lefty downtown Manhattan. Wow. They knew that if Donald Trump had won that election or had been declared the winner of that election, then there would have been all hell to pay.
We saw it in 2016. We saw the mayhem they caused. So much has been said about January 6th, but nothing about what happened after Trump won and after the inauguration.
But I want to talk, Rita, about the politics of this, because they're getting more and more curious and interesting. And just a little while ago, Peter Dutton was on here with Andrew Clennell. We have a grab of this, which I'll play in a moment. But basically, Peter Dutton was asked, if you win the next election and the no case has gone down, would you hold a referendum just simply on the point of constitutional recognition? Here's what he had to say.
We went to the last election and a number of elections before that with that as our policy. And that will be our policy going into the next election as well. I think it's right and respectful to recognise Indigenous Australians in the Constitution. We will work with the Labor Party.
Now, I don't know what his game here is on this, but I think the prospect of putting Australia through a second referendum after the no case gets up, assuming it does get up, I think is a tactical own goal here. What do you think, Rita?
I just can't understand why, after we've been through this divisive debate that's been thrust upon us, you would commit to another referendum when we've got...
But just solely on the recognition point.
Yeah, but why? But why? Surely we've got other concerns. Why have another referendum, another costly, possibly divisive debate to, again, inject race into the referendum? Now, sure, if this referendum was just about recognition, it would most likely get up, but it's not. And they've had their go. We've had an opportunity to go down this road. A decision's been made. Surely we've got other priorities.
This is a fatal mistake, I think, by Dutton. Make the main issue the main issue. We should be debating Anthony Albanese's referendum, not Peter Dutton's hypothetical one. Never interrupt your enemies when they're in the middle of making a mistake. And Dutton is making himself the issue here when the current referendum before the Australian people needs to be the issue.
Well, and I think that also gets to... I think that also gets to another point of the no campaign's tactics here that need a bit of a refresh, because one of the lines that you keep seeing from them and they keep saying is, if you don't know, vote no. Well, on a certain level, that's fine, except that the Yes campaign says, well, go and do the research, which is also a fine and fair thing for the Yes campaign to say. But the response from the No campaign needs to really be, the messaging is on the front foot, that Anthony Albanese is not letting us do the research, because whenever we talk about anything that's outside the purview of those 439 words, the humble request that fits on the A4 piece of paper, never mind all the pages about treaty and reparations and percentage of GDP and a Macarata Commission and everything else that sits behind it, you get called a conspiracy theorist. You know, the point that really needs to be made by the No campaign is we'd love to find out more. We'd love to know the reasons. We would love to know and do our duty as citizens, but every time we try and talk about that, you know, Anthony Albanese acts like we've all put on tinfoil hats simply for talking about things that are right there on the National Indigenous Australians Agency website.
Well, I think part of the problem here is that the Liberals didn't straight away, as soon as Anthony and Albanese announced
That's
this
the
on
guy.
election night. Sorry, I completely went blank and forgot the Prime Minister's name. Happens. That they didn't come out on principle
Yes.
objecting to this, and they took 10 months to form a position. If you objected on principle to giving certain people additional rights and privileges enshrined in the Constitution based on nothing other than their race, then you don't need to worry about everything else that is going on, because on principle, this is something that should be rejected.